So now we're going to do the fuel filter, and this is again why I like to have oil in the motor before I start messing with the fuel filter. Now, fuel filter is no big deal, especially in these ISXs. If you have a Cat or a Detroit, especially the D15 with cartridge style filters, it's a little bit different for you because you don't have a primer pump. Now you have a hand pump with ISX. The older ones, all of them, they all have a primer pump where you turn the key and it cycles the fuel. It pulls fuel. So that's the nice thing about it. Old Packard also, it does not have it either. So Cummins is your only engine that has a little lift pump, electronic lift pump that'll pump fuel. Now, if there's no fuel in the lines and you have air in it, it's not going to be able to pump anything. So you have to be careful with it. Now, Cummins on these common rail engines, the common rail is the fuel system with the high fuel pressure. They don't want you to pre-fill the filter. They want you to cycle the key 3 times or more as needed till it fills that filter up. Now, I'm going to tell you, sometimes you're not going to be able to do that because air is going to get trapped at the top and it's just going to get airlocked and you're not going to be able to fill that filter. So a lot of the times you will go sitting there and turn in a key and you're thinking you're getting fuel in it, but you're really not. So you're going to basically run out of fuel and your engine's going to die, and good luck trying to start it again. And then you're going to run out of batteries because yeah, you're not going to get fuel to that filter. Is that likely to happen? Yes. 50-50, I would say. I've had it happen. I've seen it happen. I usually pre-fill my filters, especially on Fancy, because Fancy's fuel system isn't as finicky as this fuel system, but I always pre-fill my filters. Now, the way I do it on this engine, and obviously I've never done it before, but I know about it because I've never had this engine before. But the way I'm going to do it on this engine is a different way than filling Fancy's fuel filter with fuel. I have a can with diesel in it just for filters. And it's one of those special U.S. government issued cans. So they're kind of a pain to fill. But I'm going to have my lovely assistant who's contracted COVID-19 that's feeling much better help me film so I can explain. So, yeah, in the fuel filter. Open it up. So what I was talking about is on these common rail Cummins motors, you see this big gaping hole. That's where it pulls fuel into the motor, right? That's where it goes through the block into the pump and all that stuff. So that's the reason why Cummins doesn't want you to put in fuel in here is, again, diesel fuel is dirty. Contamination of the pump, all that stuff. So the way you do it is you kind of want to pour it down in there because that's where it pulls fuel from the separator and it comes up the bottom, it comes up through here. So you don't want to directly pour it in there. You kind of want to slosh it in there. And you're not going to be perfect, but you're trying to be as good as possible. So if that makes any kind of sense, we're going to go ahead and do that now. And this is a big filter. This takes some fuel. And yes, I realize I need a better gas can situation. Fuel can. That's good enough. We're almost where it needs to be. Now we're gonna lubricate our seal a little bit. Well, you saw how it filled up from the outside in. It filtered the fuel basically, and that's kind of what we want. We hardly got any of this dirty old diesel that we pulled out of Fancy here in this can in the middle. So now we're gonna take the old filter off. We're gonna slam this guy on. So how many threads were on that guy? I mean, there's a lot. All right. If you have to do the separator, which we're not going to do, you want to make sure your truck starts on that filter first, then drain your separator and change it. Because if you do both at a time, it can be a pain in the ass for it to prime fuel back in the system. So now we're going to turn the key on our ISX and we're going to let it fill up the difference of the fuel that we didn't put in there. So if you hear that humming, that's the actual lift pump running right now. And we're going to let it do that a couple times. It runs for like 60 seconds. We're going to let it run again, and then we're going to fire it up. That's that. Our PM is almost done. Now we just got to grease the truck, and that's the dirty part. So you have your spring hangers, you know, you have your grease fittings here and your grease fittings on the back. As you see those are grease fittings. So this side's got a little bit less stuff. Being that this truck has disc brakes on the front, there's no S-cam, so there's really no greasing here. Not that I see anyway. So all we have on this side is our tie rod end down there and our kingpin's top, and the other side, which is on this side over here, easily accessible. Because see, this is a disc brake. Other side, we have a little bit more to grease because there's more components. Starting with the steering shaft, you got your U-joint there, you got your U-joint up there. Then you got your pitman, you got your drag link, you got your pitman arm, your top of your gearbox here, your pitman arm. Then you got your bushing there for your drag link. You might have to turn the wheel to get to that. Then you got one underneath there, and then you got your kingpins down on the bottom, and then on the other side. Then you got is this side not greasable? Maybe it's on the other side. We'll have to find that guy. And then you got two down here. Now this truck, what I'm not a fan of is it doesn't have a greasable drive line. It's sealed. The U-joints are sealed, and the splines, sorry about the sun, and the splines are sealed. So we don't have to worry about that. But do we? Eventually. If we keep this truck around and I have to replace U-joints, they're all going to get greased U-joints because I don't like not greasing U-joints. I think that's a high wear item, and I don't believe in sealed for life U-joints. I feel that a greasable U-joint is much better than a sealed for life U-joint, but less mess to clean up. So yeah, differential fluid, we'll check that out. And then back here, all we have is this. So right there is a grease fitting. That guy, that's your S-cam, because this has drum brakes in the back. And that guy down there, that's our slack adjuster. That's gonna have a, what's it called? A grease fitting on it too. Our fifth wheel, does it have bushings underneath here we can grease? I don't see it, unless they're on the other side. I don't see any. So we don't have to grease that guy. So kingpins are important, very important to grease if you don't want your front end to wear out. I say if you can and you're running a lot of miles, just give it a squirt once a week. This gun, I bought this at Tractor Supply. It's nothing fancy. It works great. I mean, you guys can ask Alice how great it works and how much I love it. It saved so much hassle for me, because I mean, you can get an air one, but dragging all these airlines out with you, it's kind of a pain in the ass. So having a cordless one is really nice, where it's battery operated. You just put your grease in and go to town. Now on this truck, like I said, in the back there really isn't much to grease. We just have our slack adjusters and our S-cam bushings, because again, this truck has a non-serviceable driveline. The U-joints you don't grease on this truck, so I don't like that, but hey, it's okay because I don't have to grease it, right? One of these days, if we keep this truck long enough and they start going to crap, we're going to replace them with greasable units. On this truck, the reason why I have S-cams to grease is because we have drum brakes. We don't have that on the front. We have discs on the front, so that's why we don't have S-cams to grease on the front. That's pretty much it for this truck, for this service. Pretty easy to do. It takes you about an hour to do at home, but I'm going to tell you guys, you're going to know it's done right, because a lot of these guys won't grease your truck properly. You're going to have premature front end failures, tie rods, kingpins, U-joints if you're greasable, all that stuff, S-cams. You know, if it's not greased properly, like your slack adjuster and your S-cams not so much because they don't really do that. But if you don't grease your slack adjusters, your brakes will skip sometimes. Your slack adjusters will wear out. Your brakes will be out of adjustment. If you're one of those guys that doesn't check your brake adjustment, well, you're going to get tickets at a scale if you ever get an inspection done. So it's good practice to get underneath your truck if you're an owner-operator. Look at all this stuff. Learn. If you don't want to learn, don't be an owner-operator, because you should learn. You should know your truck. But what I'm getting at is doing this yourself, $300 to $400 in your pocket, and you know it's done right. You know you're using actual quality oil. You know you're using quality filters. You know it's done right. $300 to $400 saved. A PM on this truck is around $700 in most places right now on this X15. $550 to $700. I think I have filters and oil and grease. I want to say around $240. Not even that. I want to say $220 to $240. You're saving a lot of money. Do it yourself. Learn. Be that owner operator. That way nobody's going to rip you off. Do it yourself, guys. I'll also check my tire pressures as I'm doing this, especially in the back, because a lot of the times in the back, that's where you won't see it. So it's good practice. Once a week, check your tire pressures. I know. Trucks are high maintenance.
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drip, yeah, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drip, yeah, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up.